I'm Grace White. People in Houston have called and emailed us saying they're getting high water bills and don't understand why. We took their questions to City Hall and sat down with the head of Houston Public Works, Carol Haddock, to understand what's going on with the bills and what they're doing to fix the problem. Here's my extended interview with her. We've heard all year from people, you've heard it too, people call us in the newsroom about high water bills. They ask us what's going on. We've heard questions from City Council. What is going on with the high water bills?
So let's just start off with the water system. Let's just start off with, every drop of water is precious. And as we look at what we do at Houston Public Works, we're responsible for all the infrastructure that people rely on every day. Streets, stormwater, wastewater, and water, the water system. And so the water bills is a significant topic that we talk about very routinely. The question that we ask ourselves is what is causing the appearance and in the reality that people are getting high water bills, and there's a lot of different reasons, and you have to dig into each individual bill and understand what's going on there. In some cases, it is our metering infrastructure. The meters themselves are not new. The remote read technology that we use to read our meters is aging very rapidly. It's been in the ground since the late 90s, early 2000s. And the way that our system works, we have meters that are mechanical meters. They're metal mechanical meters that literally spin as the water goes through it, which measures how much water goes through it. And then we have an electronic device that sits on top of it that reads that meter and transmits that reading to us. And the part that is failing is that remote read device. It's that transmitter. And so when that fails, we have to go out and manually read that meter. And so what has happened is those devices are failing. We're required to go out and get more manual readings than we have people to go out and get. And so we end up with a lot of accounts that are estimated. And so if they've been estimated for a number of months and then we go out and get an actual reading and we happen to be in a year that's a drought, that they may be using more water than they've historically used. And so we see that come through in those estimated bills, that they come back really high. In other cases, because they've been estimated for months, somebody may have had a leak that they weren't aware of because their monthly bill wasn't telling them that there was a leak, and they weren't seeing it because it was underground, or it went into a storm sewer, or it was in an irrigation system that only ran occasionally. And so the monthly bill that they were getting didn't indicate that they had a problem, so they weren't looking for it. And so when we come back and we get that actual read, then it generates that high bill that creates it would cause me, honestly, it would cause me concern if I got that bill as well.
And you don't estimate for more than 3 months. So you're saying after those 3 months, you send somebody out, and then all of a sudden there's a change in the bill that causes some alarm in some cases.
We do now. When this all started, we found that there were some accounts in our system that had been estimated for more than a year. And so we changed our internal processes so that we do not go more than 3 months now without manually seeing that meter.
And remind me when you made that change, beginning of this year?
We made that change in the middle of this year. It is not a fair relationship with our customers. If they've been getting an estimated bill and they've been paying that bill, that we would come back later and change the rules on them. And so now we are not back billing any more than those 3 months. If we have been in an estimated status, then.
And I know now there's a flag, right, on your bill, or an indicator, you would say, of an estimation. Has there always been, or was that also a change this year? Forgive me.
So it's always been there, but it's not been somewhere that anyone would look. Okay. It was on the bottom of the back page, down in a little box at the bottom that it said estimated. And so we have pulled that to the front, and we've put that in the title and made it prominent so that people would know that it's estimated.
Okay. And the department has said incorrect bills only represent about less than 1%. Is that still today where it stands?
So when we look at our numbers, it is that. But when you look at the fact that we send out 500,000 bills a month, and you look at what 0.8% of 500,000 bills in, that could be several thousand bills that we have some sort of concern or billing issue with. That's a very large number. That's a lot of people in Houston when you look. So the percentage is very good, but it is a very real impact on our community that we're working to reduce even further.
So you don't necessarily think that number has changed throughout this year? It's stayed consistent about less than 1%?
With the numbers that we're seeing of people that are contacting us and asking questions and things of that nature, we're seeing that number's still pretty consistent. But once again, we encourage everybody, don't just sit at home and complain. If you've got a concern, if you've got a question, reach out to us. We can't know that there's a concern there if we don't hear from you.
A lot of people have called us frustrated about response times. Has customer account services been overwhelmed this year by the number of calls they're getting?
So it has been a heavy load. I will freely admit that. It is definitely more calls than we have had in the past, and we don't have more staff.
I was going to ask you about staffing.
We are definitely better staffed today than we were at the end of last year.
About 3,000 total employees, right?
So Houston Public Works has a total of we have 4,200 positions, and we actually have a little over 3,900 active employees. And that's across all of our service lines. That's water, wastewater, streets, storm drainage. It's our permitting center. It's our support services through finance, and then also our administrative as well.
Mm-hmm. Has customer account services stayed the same, or have you increased the number of people answering those phones?
So we have. So we had, at one point last year, we were up over 30% vacancies, and now we're down in almost every area in Public Works. We're between 15 and 20% vacancies across the board. And so it is one of those things that we do struggle with daily, but our call center is staffed well. Our billing team is staffed well for normal loads.
And you would say this year increased load?
So I would say that we are stretched very thin. We're doing a lot of overtime, and we are using outside contractors to help. We will be bringing one forward very shortly to help with the manual reading of the meters, so that we can redirect our employees that are currently doing that to install some of these remote read devices.
Do you go out to every customer's property that has some sort of question that they can't figure out to figure out if it's on their side or on the city's side? Or do sometimes you just can't make it to every property?
So I would say that it's not about staffing. It's about what are the circumstances that are going on. And so sometimes what's being described and what's being presented doesn't necessarily involve somebody needing to go to the field. But we actually have not just the person who's reviewing the bill, we actually have the meter technicians, we have a number of other people. So generally, if there is something on the ground, in the field that needs for one of us to have our eyes on it, to look at the meter, to look at where the leak is coming from or something like that, absolutely, we will send somebody to the field. And we've revised our processes to work to arrange a mutually agreeable time so that the account owner, the property owner, can be present while we're there.
Yeah, because a lot of times we hear, oh, I didn't realize they were there, and y'all say, oh, we came out, and the homeowner's like, were they here? I don't know, I'm like, what's going on,
Yeah, so, and that's part of communication. That's part of being clear and transparent and reliable, is making sure that we shore up those areas and provide good customer service.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about aging infrastructure. You mentioned it at the beginning, the meters. Are the aging meters still part of the problems we're seeing with high bills?
So, and why I talked about it about the way I did earlier is because it's really important to understand that the meter itself, that mechanical part, the metal meter that measures as it turns around, it's a tried and true technology. It's been on the ground for almost a century, if not longer. Not the meters that we have in the ground, but this type of metering. And the remote read device is the piece that we are having the biggest failures on, because it's a technology. It's a technology similar to, it relies on chips. It relies on chips like you have in your cell phone and your car and all those things. And so it's that remote read technology that is actually what's failing. The meter itself is still giving good reads for the most part. The percentages of mechanical meters that fail is very, very low. And the older they get, they actually tend to under-register the amount of water that's going through them. So if we take out a 35-year-old meter and put a new meter in, without you changing your use of water in the house at all, usually the amount of water that's measured will go up.
So higher bills.
Higher bills if you put a new meter in, a new mechanical meter. And so that remote read device is definitely hurting us, because if you look back at 2019, which is when we went forward with the contract, 2020 is when we entered the contract to replace those remote read devices. We were doing manual reads of around 40,000 accounts out of 500,000, and about 6,000 or 7,000 accounts we were estimating. Fast forward to today, we're actually manually reading 125,000 accounts, which requires us to estimate around 40,000 of those every bill cycle to be able to get the bill out in a timely manner.
It's a lot more.
It is a lot more. And it's that failing remote read infrastructure that's causing that workload on us. Now, this really is the result of kind of a confluence of several things. We got the contract out there to get the new remote read devices months before COVID hit. When COVID hit and these devices that rely on chips, all of a sudden the chip manufacturing worldwide really slowed down. And so when the facilities that were able to manufacture these chips began to manufacture them again, you can imagine that worldwide the priority was not for water meter reading devices, it was for cell phones, it was for vehicles, it was for computers. And so as that production came back up, it went to higher priority items, and we still were delayed in getting these remote read devices physically made and then delivered so that we could deploy them. So it was earlier this year, it was late 2022 that we finally started receiving things that we thought we would be receiving in early 2020. We had about 7,000 installed, you saw in the TTI presentation in March. We're at 71,000 now.
Big improvement.
It's a big improvement, but that still leaves 430,000 citywide that need to be replaced. And it was originally a 10-year plan when we entered it in late 2019. We do believe, working with the manufacturer, that we're still going to be able to deliver this for that original 10-year cycle, not 10 years from today. Based on what they can deliver and what we can install, we can still have this all on the ground by 2030. It's still a long ways away.
So you've outpaced your number for this year, because 53,000 were planned and now you've done 71.
That's correct.
So those shipments, fair to say, have returned to normal.
They have at this point.
We had asked for some data that you all provided to us in July that showed the 20-year-old meters by zip code, if I'm remembering it right. And it totaled about 267,000 meters. Is that number, and again, generically, half or so of the 500,000, does that still represent an accurate picture of kind of the meters that need to be replaced?
So it is, and this is where the separation of the meter and the remote read device is really important, because the meters themselves, that number of 267,000 has gone up to just under 290,000 just because of time and when the meters went in the ground. But the remote read devices, other than the new ones that we've put back in, the majority of them are very near that 20-year mark.
So you're saying that they're almost two separate installations?
They actually are two separate installations.
The meters and then the chips?
The remote read devices, yeah. So the whole device with the chip in it.
Got it. So the 20-year-old meters that need to be replaced have increased just shy of 300,000. So more than half of the meters in Houston need to be replaced still. So,
and water meters themselves, that mechanical meter, they're very reliable. They tell you it's a 20-year life. They're very reliable, 30, 35 years. Once you get, beyond that timeline, you start to get to a point where they're really under registering to a point that it could actually impact your revenue stream. But, they're being over 20 years for the actual mechanical meter is not something that causes me great concern. The remote read devices
is the higher priority.
Is definitely the higher priority.
And just so I understand, the remote read devices are on the 10-year plan, the goal. But the aging meters, is that on a timetable or that's just as it comes?
So we replace the meters as we replace the neighborhood water lines or as we identify that there's something wrong with individual meters. But we will actually go, we actually do have an overall plan to refresh meters citywide, neighborhood by neighborhood. They're pretty easy to swap in and swap out. But when we replace the water lines in a neighborhood, that's actually when we replace all the meters at the same time generally.
But is it fair to say the remote reading devices are your priority? You feel like that has a greater impact on the billing cycle and the bills?
It definitely has a greater impact on our ability to get out an accurate and timely bill.
And to not be estimating.
And not to be estimating.
Let's talk a little bit about high usage alerts. How long before, or is it just pie in the sky like a dream to have them on every device?
So the conversation between the remote read devices and the high alerts are just, they're hand in glove. So once we have that remote read device where you can go out as an account holder and you can actually create a link, you can create an online profile, and you can link to your meter.
And I'm just repeating to make sure I understand. The 71,000 remote reading devices that have been installed this year all come with a high usage alert.
So they all come with the ability for you to set one up as the account holder. And we will be contacting every single one. And as we roll through this and we're installing more and more every month, we're going to reach out to those customers and say, hey, you now have this on your meter and you have the ability to do this. Now I will say, in addition to the 71,000 new ones, some people still have the old technology that's still functional. And I know that at my house I still have one of the old ones that is still working today. It may not be in 2 months, it may not be in 6 months, but it is today. And today I can go out and see what my meter says. But as you know, as the new ones come online, it's going to open it up for everybody.
And if you have an old one, again, it's just email.
Everybody's just email right now.
Everybody's just email.
As soon as we get this new, and it's just basically in addition to the system, and we get it implemented and deployed in January, everybody that has access to the reads through a functioning remote read device will have access to emails and texts. It won't matter if you have an old one or a new one. They'll both work the same way.
Starting in January.
My team has told me January, so I'm going to hold them to January.
What other changes will you make in the new year in 2024 to regain the public's trust?
So we have a long ways to go to regain the public's trust in this. We have already, we're discussing some ordinance changes. Are there ways that we can communicate better, communicate in real time, that we can allow customers to have tools, like you talk about the high use alerts, not even just the high use alerts, a different use. My normal use over the course of a day is 400 gallons, and for some reason yesterday I used 600. That's not necessarily high use. A leak type high use, you may have it set up as 1,000 gallons, but maybe it can alert you if you've got a different use.
More transparency to just the whole process.
Absolutely.
What would you tell customers that are looking at a high water bill and feel like they're just not getting answers from Public Works?
I would say, please give me another chance. Please give us another chance. We want to be good partners in working through this. Our goal is to provide accurate, fair bills that reflect our cost of treating and distributing that water and collecting and treating that wastewater. And that's it. I mean, it's not our goal to be in a contentious place with any of these customers.